Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 605th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the merchant had sold his chander's wood and had taken the money, he quitted that city and returned to his own land. Then the prince continued, But this is not more wondrous than the tale of the 3-year-old child. What may that be? Asked the king. And the prince replied, I have heard tale of a debauchee and the 3-year-old child. Know, O king, that a certain profligate man who was addicted to the sex once heard of a beautiful and lovely woman who dwelt in a city other than his own. So he journeyed thither, taking with him a present, and wrote her a note setting forth all that he suffered of love-longing and desire for her, and how his passion for her had driven him to forsaken his native land and came to her, and he ended up by praying for an assignation. So she gave him leave to visit her, and he entered her abode. She stood up and received him with all honor and worship, kissing his hands and entertaining him with the best entertainment of meat and drink. Now she had a little son, but 3 years old, whom she left and busied herself in cooking rice. Presently the man said to her, Come, let us go and lie together. But she replied, My son is sitting looking at us. Quoth the man, He's a little child, understanding not, neither knowing how to speak. Quoth the woman, Thou wouldst not say thus, and thou knew his intelligence. When the boy saw that the rice was done, he wept with bitter weeping, and his mother said to him, What gars thee weep, O my son? Ladle me out some rice, answered he, and put clarified butter in it. So she ladled him out somewhat of rice, and put butter therein, and the child ate a little, and then began to weep again. Quoth she, What ails thee, O my son? O my mother, I want some sugar with my rice. At this, the man who was angered, Thou art none other than a cursed child. Curse thyself by Allah, answered the boy, seeing thou wearest thyself and journeyest from city to city in quest of adultery. As for me, I wept because I had somewhat in my eye, and my tears brought it out. And now I have eaten rice with butter and sugar, and am content. So which is the cursed of us twain? The man was confounded at this rebuke from a little child, and forthright grace entered him, and he was reclaimed. Wherefore he laid not a finger on the woman, but went out from her, and returned to his own country, where he lived in a contrite life till he died. As for the story of the 5-year-old child, continued the prince, I have heard tell, O king, of the following anent of the stolen purse. 4 merchants once owned in common 1,000 gold pieces, so they laid them mingled together in one purse, and set out to buy merchandise therewith. They happened as they wended their way on a beautiful garden, so they left the purse with the woman who had care of the garden, saying to her, Mind thee, thou shalt not give it back, save when all 4 of us in person demand it of thee. She agreed to this, and they entered and strolled a while about the garden walks, and ate and drank and made merry, after which one of them said to the others, I have with me scented fuller's earth. Come, let us wash our heads therewith in this running water. Quoth another, We lack a comb. And a third, Let us ask the keeper, belike she hath a comb. Thereupon one of them arose, and accosting the caretaker, said to her, Give me the purse. Said she, Not until ye all be present, or thy fellows bid me to give it to thee. Then he called to his companions, who could not see him but hear him, saying, She will not give it to me. And they said to her, Give it to him, thinking he meant the comb. So she gave him the purse, and he took it and made off as fast as he could. When the 3 others were weary of waiting, they went to the keeper and asked her, Why wilt thou not give him the comb? Answered she, He demanded naught of me save the purse, and I gave him not that same, but with your consent, and he went his way with it. When they heard her words, they buffeted their faces, and laying hands upon her, said, We authorized thee only to give him the comb. And she rejoined, He named not a comb to me. Then they seized her and haled her before the Kazi, to whom they related their claim, and he condemned her to make good the purse, and bound her sundry of her debtors to answer for her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 606th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Kazi condemned the caretaker to make good the purse, and bound over sundry of her debtors to answer for her. So she went forth confounded, and knowing not her way out of the difficulty. Presently she met a 5-year-old boy, who, seeing her trouble, said to her, "What ails thee, O mother?" But she gave him no answer, condemning him because of his tender age, and he repeated his question a second and a third time, till at last she told him all that had passed, not forgetting the condition that she was to keep the purse until all 4 had demanded it of her. Said the boy, "Give me a dirham to buy sweetmeats withal, and I will tell thee how thou mayest acquit thyself." She gave him his silver, and said to him, "What hast thou to say?" Quoth he, "Return to the Kazi, and say to him, it was agreed between myself and them that I should not give them the purse, except all 4 of them were present. Let them all 4 come, and I will give them the purse as was agreed." So she went back to the Kazi, and said to him as the boy had counselled, and he asked the merchants, "Was it thus agreed between you and this woman?" And they answered, "Yes." Quoth the Kazi, "Then bring me your comrade, and take the purse." So they went in quest of their fellow, whilst the keeper came off scot-free, and went her way without let or hindrance. And Allah is omniscient. When the king and his wazir and those present in the assembly heard the prince's words, they said to his father, "O our lord the king, in very sooth thy son is the most accomplished man of his time." And they called down blessings upon the king and the prince. Then the king strained his son to his bosom, and kissed him between the eyes, and questioned him of what had passed between the favourite and himself. And the prince sware to him by Almighty Allah, and by his holy prophet, that it was she who had required him of love, which he refused, adding, "Moreover, she promised me that she would give thee poison to drink, and kill thee, so should the kingship be mine. Whereupon I waxed wroth, and signed to her, O accursed one, when as I can speak, I will requite thee. So she feared me, and did what she did." The king believed his words, and sending for the favourite, said to those present, "How shall we put this damsel to death?" Some counselled him to cut off her tongue, and others some to burn it with fire. But when she came before the king, and she said to him, "My case with thee is like unto naught, save the tale of the fox and the folk." "How so?" asked he. And she said, "I have heard, O king, the tale of the story of the fox and the folk. A fox once made his way into a city by the wall, and entering the courier's storehouse, played havoc with all therein, and spoiled skins for the owner. One day the courier set a trap for him, and taking him, beat him with the hides till he fell down senseless, whereupon the man, deeming him to be dead, cast him out upon the road by the city gate. Presently an old woman who was walking by, seeing the fox, said, "This is a fox whose eye hung about a child's neck is salutary against weeping." So she plucked out his right eye and went away. Then passed a boy who said, "What does this tale on this fox?" and cut off his brush. After a while up came a man, and saying, "This is a fox whose gall cleareth away film and dimness from the eyes, if they be anointed therewith like coal." He took out his knife to slit up the fox's paunch, but Reynard said in himself, "We bore with the plucking out of the eye and the cutting off of the tail, but as for the slitting of the paunch, there is no putting up with that." So saying, he sprang up and made off through the gate of the city, hardly believing in his escape. Quoth the king, "I excuse her, in my son's hands be her doom. If he will let him torture her, and if he will let him kill her." Quoth the prince, "Pardon is better than vengeance, and mercy is of the quality of the noble." And the king repeated, "'Tis for thee to decide, O my son." So the prince set her free, saying, "Depart from our neighbourhood, and Allah pardon what is past." Therewith the king rose from his throne of estate, and seating his son thereon, crowned him with his crown, and bade the grandees of his realm swear fealty, and commanded them to do homage to him. And he said, "O folk, indeed, I am stricken in years, and desire to withdraw apart, and devote myself only to the service of my Lord. And I call you to witness that I divest myself of the kingly dignity, even as I have divested myself of my crown, and set it on my son's head." So the troops and the officers swore fealty to the prince, and his father gave himself up to the worship of his Lord, not stinted from this, whilst his son abode in his kingship, doing justice and righteousness, and his power was magnificent, and his sultanate strengthened, and he abode in all delight and solace of life, till there came to him the certainty. Judar and His Brethren. There was once a man and a merchant named Omar, and he had for issue 3 sons, the eldest called Salim, the youngest Judar, and the cadet Salim. He reared them all till they came to man's estate, but the youngest he loved more than his brothers, who seeing this waxed jealous of Judar and hated him. Now when their father, who was a man shodden in years, saw that his 2 eldest sons hated their brother, he feared lest after his death trouble should befall him from the others. So he assembled a company of his kinsfolks together with divers men of learning and property distributors of the Kaziz's court, and bidding bring all the monies and cloth, said to them, O folk, divide ye this money and stuff into 4 portions according to the law. They did so, and he gave 1 part to each of his sons, and kept the 4th for himself, saying, This was my good, and I have divided among them my lifetime, and this that I have kept shall be for my wife, their mother, wherewithal to provide for her sustenance, whenas she shall become a widow. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 607th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the merchant had divided his money and stuff into 4 portions, he said, This share shall be for my wife, their mother, wherewithal to provide for her sustenance, whenas she shall be a widow. A little while after this he died, and neither of the 2 elder brothers was content with his share, but sought more of Judar, saying, Our father's wealth is in thy hands. So he appealed to the judges and the Moslems who had been present at the partition, and came and bore witness of that which they knew, wherefore the judge forbade them from one another. But Judar and his brothers wasted much money in bribes to him. After this the twain left him a while. Presently, however, they began again to plot against him, and he appealed a second time to the magistrate, who once more decided in his favor. But all 3 lost much money, which went to the judges. Nevertheless, Salim forbore not to seek his hurt, and to carry this case from court to court, he and they losing till they had given all their good for food to the oppressors, and they became poor, all 3. Then the 2 elder brothers went to their mother, and flouted her, and beat her, and seizing her money, drave her away. So they betook herself to her son, Judar, and told him how his brothers had dealt with her, and fell to cursing the twain. Said he, O my mother, do not curse them, for Allah will requite each of them according to his deed. But, O my mother mine, see, I am become poor, and so are my brethren, for strife occasioneth loss, ruin, rife, and we have striven amain, and fought I and they before the judges, and it hath profited us not. Nay, we have wasted all our father left us, and are disgraced among the folk, by reason of our testimony one against the other. Shall I then contend with them anew on thine account, and shall we appeal the judges? This may not be. Rather, do thou take up thine abode with me, and the scone I eat I will share with thee. Do thou pray for me and Allah, and give me the means of thine alimony. Leave them to receive of the Almighty the recompense of their deed, and console thyself with the saying of the poet, who said, If a fool oppress thee, bear patiently, and from time expect thy revenge to see. Shun tyranny, for if mount oppressed, a mount 'twould be shattered by tyranny. And he soothed and comforted her till she consented, and took up her dwelling with him. Then he gat him a net, and went a-fishing every day in the river on the banks about Bullock, and Old Cairo, or some other places in which there was water. And one day he would earn 10 coppers, another 20, another 30, which he spent upon his mother and himself, and they ate well, and they drank well. But as for his brothers, they piled no craft, and neither sold nor bought. Misery and ruin and overwhelming calamity entered their houses, and they wasted that which they had taken from their mother, and became of the wretched naked beggars. So at times they would come to their mother, humbling themselves before her exceedingly, and complaining to her of hunger, and she, a mother's heart being pitiful, would give them some mouldy, sour-smelling bread, or if there were any meat cooked the day before, she would say to them, "Eat it quick, and go ere your brother come, for 'twould be grievous to him, and he would harden his heart against me, and you would disgrace me with him." So they would eat in haste and go. One day among days they came into their mother, and she set cooked meat and bread before them. As they were eating, behold, in came their brother Judar, at whose sight the parent was put to shame and confusion, fearing lest he would be wroth with her. And she bowed her face earthwards, abashed before her son. But he smiled in their faces, saying, "Welcome, O my brothers, a blessed day. How comes it that ye visit me this blessed day?" Then he barked and embraced them both, and entreated them lovingly, saying to them, "I thought not that you would have left me desolate by your absence, nor that you would have forborne to come and visit me and your mother." Said they, "By Allah, O my brother, we longed sore for thee, and not withheld us but abashment because of what befell between us and thee. But indeed we have repented. 'Twas Satan's doing. The curse of Allah, the Most High, be upon him. And now we have no blessings but thyself and our mother." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 608th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Judar entered his place, and saw his brothers, he welcomed them both, saying, 'And I have no blessings but you twain.' And his mother exclaimed, 'Allah whiten thy face, and increase thy prosperity, for thou art the most generous of us all, O my son.' Then he said, 'Welcome to you both. Abide with me, for the Lord is bountiful, and good aboundeth with me.' So he made peace with them, and they supped and nighted with him. And the next morning, after they had broken their fast, Judar shouldered his net and went out, trusting in the opener, whilst the two others also went forth and were absent till midday, when they returned, and their mother set the noon meal before them. At nightfall, Judar came home bearing meat and greens, and they abode on this wise a month's space, Judar catching fish and selling it, and spending their price on his mother and his brothers, and these eating and frolicking, till one day it chanced he went down to the river bank, and throwing his net, brought it up empty. He cast it a second time, but again it came up empty, and he said, "No fish in this place." So he removed to another, and threw the net there, but nothing availed. And he ceased not to remove from place to place till nightfall, but caught not a single sprat, and said to himself, "Wonderful! Hath the fish fled the river, or what?" Then he shouldered the net and made his way home, chagrined, concerned, feeling for his mother and his brothers, and knowing not how he would feed them that night. Presently he came to the baker's oven, and saw the folk crowding for bread, with silver in their hands, whilst the baker took no note of them. So he stood there sighing, and the baker said to him, "Welcome to thee, O Judar. Dost thou want bread?" But he was silent, and the baker continued, "And thou have no dirhams? Take thy sufficiency, and thou shalt get credit." So Judar said, "Give me 10 coppers worth of bread, and take this net in pledge." Rejoined the baker, "Nay, my poor fellow, the net is thy gate of earning thy livelihood, and if I take it from thee, I shall close up against thee the door of thy sustenance. Take thee 10 nufs worth of bread, and take these other 10, and tomorrow bring me fish for the 20. On my head and eyes be it," quoth Judar, and he took the bread and the money, saying, "Tomorrow the Lord will dispel the trouble of my case, and will provide me the means of acquittance." Then he bought meat and vegetables, and carried them home to his mother, who cooked them, and they supped and went to bed. The next morning he arose at daybreak, and took the net, and his mother said to him, "Sit down, and break thy fast." But he said, "Do thou and my brothers break fast," and went down to the river about Bullock, where he ceased not to cast once, twice, thrice, and to shift about all day without aught failing him, till the hour of mid-afternoon prayer, when he shouldered his net and went away sore dejected. His way led him perforce by the booth of the baker, who, when he saw him, counted out to him the loaves and the money, saying, "Come, take it and go, and be it not tomorrow, 'twill be tomorrow." Judar would have excused himself, but the baker said to him, "Go, there needeth no excuse, and thou had netted aught, but it would be with thee. So seeing thee empty-handed, I knew that thou hadst caught nothing. And if tomorrow thou had no better luck, come and take bread, and be not abashed, for I will give thee credit." So Judar took the bread and money and went home. On the third day also he sallied forth and fished from tank to tank until the time of afternoon prayer, but he caught nothing. So he went to the baker and took the bread and silver as usual. On this wise he did 7 days. Today, he said, I go to Lake Karun. So he went thither, and was about to cast his net, when there came up to him unawares a Maghibri, a Moor, clad in splendid attire, and riding a she-mule with a pair of gold-embroidered saddlebags on her back, and all trappings be all frayed. The Moor alighted and said to him, Peace be unto thee, O Judar, O son of Omar, and on thee likewise be peace, O my lord the pilgrim, replied the fisherman. Quoth the Maghrebi, O Judar, I need help of thee, and given thou obey me, thou shalt get great good, and shalt be my companion, and manage my affairs for me. Quoth Judar, O my lord, tell me what is thy mind, and I will obey thee without demur. Said the Moor, Repeat the Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran. So he recited it with him, and the Moor, bringing out a silken cord, said to Judar, Pinion my elbows behind me with this cord, as fast can be, and cast me into the lake. Then wait a little while, and if thou see me put forth my hands above the water, raising them high ere my body show, cast thy net over me, and drag me out in haste. But if thou see me come up feet foremost, then know that I am dead. In which case do thou leave me, and take the mule and the saddlebags, and carry them to the merchant's bazaar, where thou wilt find a Jew by the name of Shamya. Give him the mule, and he will give thee 100 dinars, which do thou take, and go thy way, and keep the matter secret, all secrecy. So Judar tied his arms behind him, and he said, Tie tighter. Then said he, Push me till I fall into the lake. So he pushed him in, and he sank. Judar stood there waiting some time, till behold, the Moor's feet appeared above the water, whereupon he knew that he was dead. So he left him and drove the mule to the bazaar, where, seated on a stool at the door of the storehouse, he saw the Jew, who, spying the mule, cried, In very sooth the man hath perished, adding, and naught undid him but covetise. Then he took the mule from Judar, and gave him 100 dinars, charging him to keep the matter secret. So Judar went and bought what bread he needed, saying to the baker, Take this gold piece. And the man summed up what was due to him, and he said, I still owe thee 2 days' bread. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease the telling of these tales for today, till it be morrow.